Mr. Bass. Ms. Conrad Seda,
Here.
Ms. Faustinos,
Here.
Ms. Gustafson,
Here.
Ms. Hayes,
Here.
Ms. Hill,
Here.
Mr. Henigman,
Here.
Mr. Keycapper,
Here.
Ms. Lane,
Here.
Ms. Loomer,
Here.
Mr. Rice,
Here.
Mr. Settlemeyer,
Here.
Ms. Williamson.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
And this is Mr. Bass. I'm also here. I just didn't unmute in time.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. I do want to apologize to the public watching us online. We've had some intermittent outages, and if we lose connectivity again, just hold on and we'll get back to you. We've seemed to had a couple outages during an earlier committee meeting. So be patient with us and we won't skip you or take any actions until we're back with connection. So with that, I'll go over the remote and in-person meeting rules for the day. To observe the meeting, go to trpa.gov under the calendar header seat. Click on Governing Board Hybrid Meeting for October 23rd. There you'll find a public webinar hosted on Zoom. To address board members directly with your comments, raise your hand in Zoom by clicking Raise Hand at the bottom of your screen at the appropriate agenda item. With your hand raised, you will be unmuted by TRPA staff and have 3 minutes to address the board. If you have used the dial-in numbers to join us by telephone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand and be unmuted. For items that are agendized as informational only, we will hear public comment during the general public comment period at the end of the meeting. For items agendized for action or possible action, we will hear public comment before the board takes any action. To remote board members, if you wish to speak, please also raise your hand in Zoom. You will find the hand icon on the bottom of your screen. Remote board members may not use the chat box to make any comments or to have sidebar conversations. And please remember to mute your mic so we don't have background noise. Finally, I would like to ask all remote members to turn on their cameras if they are able. Members of the public who have joined us in person, please raise your hand at the appropriate time for public comment and you will be called to the front to speak. Board members who are in person, raise your hand or chime in when I ask. How's that? And so now we're going to go to our item 2 on our agenda, the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd like to ask our council to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today. Thank you very much, Mr. Marshall. Next item 3 on our agenda. Are there any staff changes to our agenda for today?
No changes, Madam Chair.
Okay, then we'll deem the agenda approved as amended for the, or as stated for the record. Approval of minutes, agenda item 4. We have a draft set of minutes from the September 25th, 2024 meeting on page 31 of our packet. Does any board member wish to make a change?
No, Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the governing board meeting of September 25th, 2024 as presented.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Any objections? Motion passes. We'll move on to TRPA consent calendar. This is item 5 on our agenda. There are 6 items on consent, all of which were reviewed by the Operations and Governance Committee meeting this morning. As a reminder to the public, after the board discussion, you may raise your hand in person to be called on or in Zoom to be unmuted. I will ask Chair Ms. Lane, would you like to give the report or do you want me just to cover those items?
No, I think because you were able to step in as chair today, it would be appropriate for you to go ahead and cover those.
Okay, well, I will be happy to report that the committee approved all 6 items, the August financials, the release of the El Dorado County Water Quality Mitigation Funds, for the Pioneer Trail US Highway 50 Intersection Safety Improvement Project, the release of El Dorado County Water Quality Mitigation Funds, $35,000 toward the Apache Avenue Pedestrian Safety and Connectivity Project, the inflation, number 4, which was the inflation adjustment to TRPA filing fee schedule. Number 5, the inflation adjustment to TRPA rental car mitigation fee. And number 6, inflation adjustment to TRPA mobility mitigation fee. So the committee has recommended approval to the board, and I would ask if there's any question from board members on those items, number 1 through 6. No one in the room. Any of you online have any questions on the operations and governance committee meeting items? I'm not seeing any hands go up. So now we'll go to the public. If there's any members of the public in person, please come to the podium if you'd like to address us on the consent calendar items. Or if you're online and would like to raise your hand and comment on those items, please do so. All right, any members of the public here interested in commenting? I'm not seeing any. I see one hand raised online.
The hand raised online, first name on Zoom is Lucinda. Lucinda, if you'd like to comment on the consent calendar, please unmute to make your comment.
And
Madam Chair, Lucinda is remaining muted.
Okay, thank you. And hopefully you can hear us. If you do want to make a comment, we need to have you unmute your mic. Okay. Then we'll close the public comment on this item, and I'd look for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any discussion? If not, we'll go to Maria for a roll call vote.
Ms. Aldine,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Bowman,
Yes.
Ms. Conrad Seda,
Yes.
Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Faustinos,
Yes.
Mr. Keycapper,
Yes.
Mr. Henigman,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Ms. Lane,
Yes.
Mr. Settlemeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Loomer,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, Maria. And that brings us to item 6A, General Counsel Interview, Hiring Decision, and Delegation of Offer Letter Preparation. Information on this item can be found on page 131 of our packets. As a reminder to the public, after the staff presentation and board discussion, we will hear public comment. So I'm now going to pass it to Angela. Is that correct?
That's
Thank you.
correct. Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Angela Atchley, Human Resources and Organizational Development Director for TRPA. As you're aware, in August, John Marshall, our General Counsel, tendered his resignation effective October 24th, 2024, which is essentially tomorrow. Prior to his resignation and in conjunction with a strategic succession planning process, the agency conducted a thorough recruitment for additional legal staff in late 2023 and early 2024, for which governing board members were part of that selection process. At our last governing board meeting in September, the board approved staff to conduct an internal recruitment in order to fill that role. HR conducted the internal recruitment, and we received one applicant for the position, which was Graham St. Michel. His resume and cover letter are attached to the staff report for your review. They're pages 134 through 138. Mr. St. Michel is here today to provide a brief presentation as to why he is interested in this general counsel position, as well as provide information on his qualifications and experience. And of course, after his presentation, Mr. St. Michel is available to answer any questions that you may have for him for the position for which he's applied. Graham, you come on up.
Thank you. Welcome to the hot seat.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. It's great to see all of you today. Good morning to staff, members of the public that are joining us today, and to those listening online. I'm Graham St. Michel, and I'm very grateful for your consideration of my application to become TRPA's General Counsel. I'd like to take the next 8 to 10 minutes to share a bit about my background, both personally and professionally, which I think make me a strong fit for this position. On a personal level, I have a deep and lifelong connection to Lake Tahoe, as I was born in Carson City and raised here in South Lake Tahoe. I understand the relationship between the basin's economy and the environment, as my father worked for the Forest Service and my mother was a table games dealer at Harris. I grew up with the recognition that Tahoe's natural beauty sustains our communities, but is also challenged by the pressures of development and visitation. And I learned never to take Lake Tahoe for granted. And even as a kid, I recognized that protecting Tahoe is about safeguarding something irreplaceable that gives our communities their identities and sustains our way of life. So for me, the opportunity to return to Tahoe and serve TRPA in its mission of achieving balance between the human environment and the natural environment really aligns very closely with my personal interests and connection to this area. Now, professionally, I've spent the past 16 years working in environmental, land use, and administrative law, both in private practice and as in-house counsel for government agencies, specifically the California Department of Conservation, the Tahoe Conservancy, and here at TRPA. I've been with TRPA for 8 months, and I've developed a strong sense for the work experience and relevant skills that are most important for this position. And I would like to highlight some of that from my professional background, which I think translates to this role. First of all, I'm very comfortable serving government agencies as an in-house advisor, which is the day-to-day function of a general counsel. In my 10 years with government in an in-house role, I've had considerable experience providing legal input so that agency management can make informed decisions, whether that's relating to an agency's authority to take certain actions, required environmental review process, and compliance with other types of legal rules like transparency, open meeting laws, conflict of interest rules, and potential litigation risks, and also the pros and cons of settling disputes. Next, I have significant experience navigating divergent and often contentious perspectives, fostering collaboration, and ensuring public transparency. And obviously, we know these are skills that are essential to the work here at TRPA. For example, at the Department of Conservation, I helped guide the agency through a very contentious public process to develop complex environmental regulations with significant real-world impacts. I was balancing concerns from the regulated oil industry, advocacy groups, the public, and higher-level policy direction from the state administration. Third, I have an appreciation for the perspectives of those on the other side of the table from regulated agencies. Like I said, I spent the first 6 years of my career in private practice in Washington, D.C. and Sacramento, where I regularly advised businesses on compliance with environmental regulations. And that experience really helped me to see that many of the problems that we face here at TRPA are best resolved through negotiation and pragmatic approaches. Another requirement for TRPA's general counsel is the ability to manage a litigation load. I have experience there as well. I've participated in litigation involving extensive discovery and witness preparation, as well as extensive legal research and briefing in both offensive situation where we're bringing enforcement actions for violators of environmental regulations, and also in a defensive role defending agency decisions from lawsuit, and even defending from tort claims, thinking about Department of Conservation and a lot of significant litigation they had around the 2016 Aliso Canyon natural gas leak, if you ever remember that. I also have experience helping an agency navigate legal rules to achieve an agency's intended goals more efficiently. At the Department of Conservation, I helped the agency switch to a different contracting process that helped the agency increase the pace of awarding public works contracts for contracts to abandon or plug abandoned oil wells all throughout the state. So I'm proud of that, and I mention that because it was an experience of working through the legal requirements to do something more efficiently, to come up with a more efficient process to achieve the agency's environmental outcomes. And I like to, as TRPA's general counsel, I will look for such opportunities to help our agency accomplish our goals more efficiently. Thank you for bearing with me as I keep going through these. I'm almost there. Very important to the role of TRPA's general counsel, I am also well-versed in Tahoe specific issues. I worked almost 3 years with the Tahoe Conservancy, which gave me an acute awareness of how important partnerships and stakeholders are to an agency trying to carry out its mission here in the Tahoe Basin. And also with the Conservancy, I developed a strong familiarity with the legal rules, legal landscape, local land use issues, and even the operation and the way that the application of TRPA's development rights framework. The general counsel must also be comfortable providing legal counsel in public meetings, and this experience is also in my background. At the Conservancy, I worked closely with staff to prepare materials in support of staff recommendations, and I developed formal written public meeting procedures for the Conservancy based on California's open meeting law. And this experience has translated seamlessly to my work here at TRPA because providing legal review and legal counsel at our public meetings is obviously a very big part of the job. And as you know, I've even been able to get that hands-on experience working with you in the governing board meetings and committees, and also at the advisory planning commission meetings. And finally, I have direct hands-on experience working and developing professional relationships with our staff and legal team, which will further enable me to make a smooth transition to the general counsel position. I've been very lucky to work under John's mentorship over the past 8 months, and I think that is really something unique for stepping into this position. I've gained insights into the agency's legal framework, the political history, the key case law, and legal authorities that guide our work. And John has been just, working with myself and Marcia and Jack to really impart his wisdom on all of those topics since I've been here. And I've really benefited from that. Also, I've approached my work here with a leadership mindset since I got here. I've been wanting to position myself to step into this role, or at least be considered. And I think that I'm really proud of having developed relationships with staff and our legal team with that kind of mindset. And I think we have a very impressive staff and a very strong legal team. It's really a team effort around here. So I don't feel at all that I'm going at this alone. And I think even with John's phasing out, we'll be able to make a smooth transition. And I'm confident that our collaborative dynamic will continue. So in closing, I just want to emphasize that I really believe that my diverse professional experience and including my time here with the agency, as well as my personal connection to Tahoe, which is really a lifelong connection, that will enable me to hit the ground running and support the board and staff as general counsel. Again, I'm deeply committed to the agency's mission, and I plan to bring a collaborative, positive, and dedicated energy to the position. So thank you again for your time and consideration. I'm looking forward to continuing our work together, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. And I first off have to thank you for still wanting the position after working with us for 8 months through some very tedious conversations lately. So sorry, Mr. Marshall. So now is an opportunity for board members to ask any questions. Maybe I would defer to our legal committee chair in case you wanted to start us off with any questions for Mr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually don't. I had the pleasure of being on the interview panel to originally hire Graham. He was as impressive in that interview as he was in this presentation. And it's really been a pleasure working with you for the past 8 months. So I have no questions at this time, but certainly want to open it. I see Alexis here.
Yes, Ms. Hill.
I have no questions. I just am very grateful we have an environmentalist who is coming in as our legal counsel. So thank you for your commitment to Lake Tahoe. And I think that the community should really appreciate your passion for the work that we do, not just the legal side, but you also have a passion for TRPA. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Rice.
Actually, my question is for Mr. Marshall. John, are you comfortable with this decision?
Yes. Short answer. Graham, we hired, as Haley says, we hired Graham knowing he was very well qualified, and he has done nothing but improve upon that impression over the last 8 months.
Thank you for that.
Ms. Aldine?
I don't have any questions either. I think that Graham is heir apparent to John, although nobody can replace John. He is irreplaceable. Although I will forewarn you that John, when I first met him, did have a full head of hair. So, you know, you might take that into consideration. You're welcome, John. It looks good on you. No, I'm comfortable with it. And I think that, you know, this is the fiscally responsible approach to take. When you have a qualified candidate, there's no reason to, you know, to go out with a full recruitment effort. And I presume that every night before you go to bed, you read the Code of Ordinances, right? So commit those to memory.
Quite a bit.
That's right. So with that, I fully support this recommendation.
Are there other comments or questions from those in the room? I'm not seeing any. Ms. Conrad Seda has her hand raised.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yes, thank you, Graham, for pursuing this and for your, you know, your thoughtful letter and presentation to us. It's really helpful. I guess it's probably less of a question and more of a comment, but just, you know, the council position is interesting because you're both advising the staff and advising the board. And I just wanted to hear from you a little bit more about, you know, your approach to ensuring that you're how you think about the flexibility when advising both the staff team and the board team, and how you kind of will come to terms with that on your own. Because the other positions, obviously, you've been really a zealous advocate for an agency. And so I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that.
Thank you. Yeah, that is a unique quality of this position. General counsel, as you mentioned, represents the staff but also the board. And you know, there may be times where there's a little divergence in directions and you know, that I think that's something that I've learned from John. That is one of the things that we've talked about. It's one of the things we've covered in my time here. So he's sort of you know, I think the answer is that it's wanting to keep the communication open for me. I think that's where I need to be. I want to keep that dynamic in the forefront of my mind. And I think so first of all, it's really about recognizing and thinking about it. And then also, you know, I think it's just using opportunities to provide those, you know, confidential communication. If I think that there's something that the board needs to be aware of, you know, that we have that option to communicate, or I can send a memo to the board, just advising about an issue. And I think it's also important. My approach to that would also be to hopefully not make surprises. You know, I'd want to talk with Julie or the director and you know, make sure that they're aware and not do things like kind of, you know, go rogue or on my own. It's something that we're all kind of in the loop in, but hey, you know, director, I need to advise the board that I have a little different take on this here, and I want to make them aware of this potential risk, because it might be different than the direction that the staff want to take.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Are there any of our other board members online that would like to ask a question or make a comment? I'm not seeing hands go up. Any other board members here? Then I will just chime in first to say, you do know you'll be on speed dial with the chair all 7 days a week, 24/7. He did disclose that to you?
I didn't.
I say that a bit, obviously, John, yeah, in jest, but there are many times after hours that we're responding to inquiries from the public. We're trying to make sure that we're prepared for a meeting, and those sometimes come after hours. But looking at the depth and breadth of your experience, and I need to say this politically correct, but I would have thought you would have been much older to have had that depth and breadth of experience that you're bringing to this agency. So I really appreciate you wanting to do this, and especially with your qualifications from the environmental side. I think it's essential to our job. So thank you.
Madam Chair, I do have a full disclosure. I bugged John for Graham's cell last week,
Oh,
so.
okay. So legal committee chair and past chair get that cell phone number, right? Okay. Julie, you wanted to make some comments?
May I? Thank you, Madam Chair. Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director. I wanted just to build on the question that Ashley Conrad Seda asked of Graham and let the board know, we actually asked a pretty difficult question, and Vice Chair Williamson will remember during the interview process, where we set up a scenario where there was a conflict between a legal, recommendation and an executive director recommendation, and how would that person handle it? And Graham, flourished in that interview and did as well. And I just wanted you all to know, because we're the two positions that report to you, to the governing board. But we have such a good history in this agency of collaboration and respecting each point of view. And if there ever were a situation, I know we would work it out. And if we couldn't work it out, we would each discuss those issues with you individually. And so we did cover that. And it was a question that kind of flummoxed some of the candidates, to be very honest. So it is a unique situation. And I think Graham answered it spot on. And then I also will just point out something that's a really important consideration for Graham's candidacy, as it was, I think, for mine, becoming the director 2 years ago, which was 2 years ago at this meeting. So this is now a little milestone event. 2 years ago, you had the decision to bring in a new executive director at the October board meeting. But Graham's connection to the community in Tahoe, and also being a bi-state entity, we both have bi-state roots, and we understand California, and we understand Nevada. And I would say there were very few candidates that had that to offer. And that is such an inherent part of our DNA of the compact, and respecting each state and understanding and having that consideration is just a real gift in Graham's background. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reagan. Mr. Marshall, did you want to add any other discussion? Okay. Yes, Mr. Hester. And what are we going to do when we don't have two Johns at the table?
More importantly, we as staff are still trying to figure out, is John going to give his Christmas coat to Graham to get altered so that we continue to have the orange and yellow and all that here for our Christmas meeting, our holiday meeting, sorry. That's all I have.
Okay. Enough humor for today. So I will close the our board comments, and I'll go to the public for comment on this item. If any member of the public wishes to address the board on this agenda item, please raise your hand now, either in person or by clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or by dialing *9 on your phone, and you will be called on. Are there any members of the public that would like to address us on this item? I'm not seeing any hands raised here in the room. And do we have any online?
Madam Chair, there are no hands raised to comment.
Thank you. Then I'll bring it back to the board. And are there any further comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I just have one question on the required motion, the second required motion. When it says the motion to delegate to the chair the authority to enter into employment terms consistent with the options contained in attachment B, because there are a range of, there's a salary range. So I presume, have concessions been made with respect to pay? This is in Exhibit B. It talks about a pay range. It talks about the applicant's current pay. And this is to be negotiated. So there's really not a recommendation contained in Exhibit B. So it really should be consistent with the options, shouldn't it, contained in Exhibit B?
if you would like to frame it that
Okay.
way,
Okay.
yes, that's okay.
Okay.
But I think it's fine the way it is. I think what the intent was just that the final number that was negotiated be within that range.
Okay,
So it's consistent with the range of attachment B.
okay. Okay. With that, I move to appoint Graham St. Michelle as general counsel, subject to agreement of employment terms.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Aldine. We have a motion. Any discussion from the board? Okay, then I pass it over to Maria to call the roll.
Ms. Aldine,
Yes.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Bowman,
Yes.
Ms. Conrad Seda,
Yes.
Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Faustinos,
Yes.
Mr. Keykeper,
Yes.
Mr. Henigman,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Ms. Lane,
Yes.
Mr. Settlemeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Loomer,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
and Ms. Gustafson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, Maria. And then we have a second motion, Ms. Aldine.
Madam Chair, I further move to delegate to the chair of the authority to enter into employment terms consistent with the options contained in Exhibit B attached here too.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions on that motion? Then we'll move. Maria, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Aldine,
Yes.
Ms. Conrad Seda,
Yes.
Ms. Bowman,
Yes.
Ms. Faustinos,
Yes.
Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Henigman,
Yes.
Mr. Keykeper,
Yes.
Ms. Lane,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Ms. Loomer,
Yes.
Mr. Settlemeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, motion passes.
Well, thank you and congratulations.
Madam Chair, I also want to
Oh.
congratulate Graham on passing the Nevada bar exam. I know it was a little tiny footnote in our
Yes.
in our packet.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And I really am sincerely looking forward to working with all of you going forward. Yeah.
Well, welcome again into a new capacity. So thank you. We'll now move to item 7 on our agenda, our public hearings. 7A is Government Relations Program Update on Federal, State, and Local Initiatives. Information on this item can be found on page 141. And as a reminder to the public, this item is informational only. We'll hear any public comment on this topic at the final public interest comment period later this morning or early afternoon. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Middlebrook for this item.
Good morning, Chair Gustafson. Thank you for having me. And good morning, Board. I'm Devin Middlebrook, TRPA's Government Affairs Manager for the record. Today, I'm going to provide an overview of TRPA's Government Relations Program and an update on federal, state, and local initiatives. Article 5 of our Bi-State Compact mandates that TRPA shall seek cooperation and consideration and consider the recommendations of our many partners and the public in implementing the regional plan and achieving our threshold standards. The TRPA Government Relations Program helps to implement this compact mandate by coordinating with a wide range of our partners and public. Next slide. And this collaboration is in TRPA's DNA because of the compact. This map clearly shows what we all know. Tahoe is a complex landscape of overlapping jurisdictional boundaries that ignore the fact that we are one watershed and one region. With this many jurisdictions involved, coordination amongst ourselves is critical to ensuring Tahoe is speaking with one voice about our vision, goals, and needs. Before the Environmental Improvement Program, this was not the case at Tahoe. And our state and federal elected officials were hearing many different messages about what the most important thing for the Tahoe region was. And this messaging noise prevented any action from taking place. In fact, our past ability to coordinate was one of the reasons for establishing the EIP, to make real progress together towards restoring Lake Tahoe. Next slide. The importance of the program was highlighted this fall with the passage of the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act reauthorization as a standalone bill in Congress. This slide includes screenshots of the floor vote where Representatives Bruce Westerman and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez read the bill onto the House floor before the House unanimously voted in favor of the bill. To have reauthorization passed before the LTRA of 2016 expired is huge. The original 2000 Act of the LTRA was expired for 6 years before the 2016 Act passed. So to have a standalone bill passed before expiration of the existing Act really cannot be understated. The bipartisan and bicameral support for Tahoe transcends politics and shows that we can all work together for a common goal. I want to thank all of Team Tahoe and especially this board for their hard work and dedication for this enormous achievement. This is just one example of the importance of the government relations program here at TRPA. Let's now look at some of our program's focus areas. Next slide. As you all know, the EIP is Tahoe's collaborative model for conservation success. Today, more than 80 partners implement EIP projects around the basin. With this many partners, it is important to recognize roles and responsibilities. TRPA serves as the backbone coordinator of the EIP and supports our implementation partners as they put EIP projects on the ground. The Government Relations Program supports TRPA's convening role by coordinating EIP partners on outreach, communications, and funding requests. For example, field tours are an effective tool for educating decision makers, elected officials, and staff about the EIP, challenges that Tahoe faces, and the solutions needed to achieve the region's goals. They also provide our partner agencies with an opportunity to highlight their work and future needs. Since March of this year, TRPA has facilitated 14 field tours, which you can see up on the screen. On the left is a group of folks the day before the Tahoe Summit at the Lamwata Nature Trail, hearing from the Washoe tribe about their work and importance of restoring meadows and wetlands. We also, on the top, are with California Secretaries Wade Crowfoot and Tokes Omashakin at the Dennis T. Machida Trail over Taylor Creek. Our chair, Cindy Gustafson, joined us for that tour, really talking about transportation funding in the region. And then in the bottom right corner, Director Settlemeyer joined us on one of our tours and jumped right in on the microphone to help explain about the need and importance of water infrastructure for fire, standing next to STPUD's great display of the difference between our old rusted water pipes and our nice big new ones for water fire flow. So I appreciate governing board members jumping in right in and helping out with all of these tours. Next slide. At a federal level, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, the reauthorization of the LTRA was really one of the top achievements for the basin this year. Extending the LTRA for another decade gives the region more time to receive the approximately $300 million in remaining authorization from the LTRA of 2016. But it's important to remember that this is only a reauthorization, and we now must continue our work to secure the annual appropriations that will fund priority EIP projects. Our federal activities for the year that supported the LTRA and the basin in general included leading 22 partners in March of 2024 on a Team Tahoe, Washington, D.C. fly-in to engage and educate with elected officials and committee staff about the importance of passing the LTRA. We also helped with coordination and execution of the 2024 Tahoe Summit, along with the League to Save Lake Tahoe, Tahoe Fund, and all of our EIP partners. More than 1,300 people attended the Tahoe Summit with keynote speaker Secretary Buttigieg. It was definitely one of the best summits in recent memory. And then finally, we also helped with coordination of congressionally designated spending / community project funding requests among our EIP partners, resulting in a 76% selection rate of our projects submitted to our congressional delegation. But of those project submissions, 4 projects for a total of $5.25 million are included in current appropriation bills for federal fiscal year 25. We just need a budget passed by Congress now to receive that funding. Next slide. At a state level, Tahoe has the pleasure of working with both California and Nevada and is strategically located right in the middle of both state capitals, which is very convenient. A major focus this year was building Tahoe's presence in the state capitals. Staff traveled for legislative meetings in both Sacramento and Carson City dozens of times to meet with elected officials and agency staff to discuss the importance of protecting Lake Tahoe. We helped develop transportation funding proposals in both states, including draft transportation formula funding bill language in California and several bill draft requests in Nevada. These funding proposals would contribute to the state share of sustainable and ongoing transportation funding. In Nevada, staff and many partner agencies participated in the 2024 interim session of the Nevada Legislative Committee for the Review and Oversight of the TRPA and Marlette Lake Water System, resulting in the submission of 8 bill draft requests for the 83rd Nevada Legislative Session in 2025. While we're talking about the states, I also want to highlight 2 relevant funding updates at the state level. First, on the California ballot this November is Prop 4, a $10 billion Parks, Environment, Energy, and Water bond measure. Included in the measure language is $54.5 million in direct funding for the California Tahoe Conservancy to implement climate-focused EIP projects and key provisions to support water infrastructure for fire projects. A poll by the Public Policy Institute of California in September of this year showed support of the measure at 65%. But I would like to give Ms. Loomer an opportunity to add anything on the climate bond if she would like to.
No, just quickly flagging that this is going to be critical for California to be able to fund the environmental programs that we're doing here in Tahoe. A lot of the funding will be going to the Wildlife Conservation Board, which is one of the big funders for the Motel 6 project. There's $1.5 billion going to forest health and wildfire resilience, which we know is hugely important here. So really exciting to hopefully see this pass in a couple of weeks and the money to touch ground in our community.
Thank you, Ms. Loomer. And in Nevada, the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources recently sold their latest round of EIP project bonds to support EIP projects at Tahoe. DCNR is also requesting authorization to sell $19 million in bonds during the 2025 legislative session for that EIP bond program. And then I don't know if Mr. Settlemeyer, Director Settlemeyer, wants to add anything about those bonds at this time. Great. Next slide. And at a local level, we also support our local partners in implementing the EIP and regional plan. This year's main focus was on transportation, a top priority of this board. The government relations program supported transportation and securing sustainable transportation funding through a few activities. First, we worked with partners to update the transportation action plan for this year's summit, and obviously the summit was all about transportation. We also supported Alexis Hill and Washoe County to secure $200,000 for TART Connect microtransit funding from the Reno Sparks Convention and Visitors Authority. And we are working with Supervisor Brooke Lane to develop pilot transit and parking management projects for Emerald Bay. You can see a group photo from a tour we did with El Dorado County supervisors last week at beautiful Emerald Bay. Next slide. Finally, as we look forward towards the new year, I want to highlight the program priorities for 2025. At the federal level, we will begin engaging partners as the 2026 highway bill is being drafted. This bill provides opportunities to secure additional transportation funding for the region and programs that are really focused on recreation travel to rural communities with high federal land ownership like Tahoe. We will also continue to make annual LTRA appropriation requests now that reauthorization has passed. However, it's important to recognize that LTRA does not fund all of the priority areas in the region, so we must continue to develop new funding opportunities, including the Alpine Lakes for Aquatic Invasive Species pilot program, housing pilot programs under the current Farm Bill, and additional funding and resources to support transportation, sustainable recreation, and science. At the state level, the major focus is on transportation funding and will continue to be in the new year. In California, we are still pursuing a fix to our formula funding calculations. And in Nevada, as I mentioned, the Nevada legislature has 8 bills related to Lake Tahoe, 3 of those directly related to transportation and transportation funding. And then locally, we'll continue to support partners in implementing the EIP and regional plan as they need our support. Specifically, this will include advancing solutions on the State Route 89 and 28 corridors, supporting the Destination Stewardship Council, and participating in more field tours, which you're all invited to. Next slide. Oh, back one. In summary, it takes the entirety of Team Tahoe to advance our goals in order to protect this beautiful place, support our fellow community members, and ensure we have a vibrant local economy. Regional collaboration will be continue to be at the core of what TRPA is and how we work to support partners and secure additional resources for the region. As we move into the new year, I will be coming back to the Environmental Improvement Committee with updates on our key priorities and overall work program. I also look forward to continuing to work with each of you individually to advance our goals. So if you have an interest in contributing to any of the focus areas I mentioned in my presentation, please let me know. And then next slide. Thank you for letting me come today and present on the program, the progress we made in the last year. I will now turn it back to Chair Gustafson to see if there's any questions from the board.
Thank you so much, Devin. Great efforts and a great summary. Sometimes the months and weeks and days fly by, and we've done so much in this last year. So appreciate your leadership on that. Board members, questions or comments? Ms. Hill?
I just want to give Mr. Middlebrook a huge shout out for his incredible work in the interim for the Lake Tahoe Marlet Lake subcommittee. I can't believe that we have 3 transportation bill draft requests, could not do it literally without TRPA, and I'm hoping we'll get some sustainable funding on the Nevada side of the world for transportation, especially Washoe. And I just appreciate the support and looking forward to working with you during the legislative session. And I know Washoe County is going to support however we can, because the board gave direction to give Ms. Matievich, our lobbyist, that support during the legislative session. So I just really commend you for your work, and I'm really excited. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Aldine.
Devin, so 3 of the 8 bill drafts relate to transportation. What are the remaining 5? Can you just give us a quick summary?
Yeah, so one of them is a cleanup in Nevada revised statute to recognize our 600-foot no wake zone, which was adopted in our shoreline plan, just giving the local law enforcement and state law enforcement more ability to implement our rules up here. There's several bill draft requests from Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, including $19 million in EIP bonds for priority EIP projects, which is exciting. One of their largest bond asks of that program. They also have some cleanup to better manage how they do reporting for their land bank, money handling at Sand Harbor, just to make their operations more efficient there, and some cleanup on language to streamline forest health projects as well. The transportation ones include enabling legislation to potentially create transportation business improvement districts in the state of Nevada, which California and Cindy knows North Shore and the North Tahoe Community Alliance have done recently. There's a provision on housing to help enable local jurisdictions to offset some of the mitigation and hookup fees for affordable housing. Yeah, that's the ones.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Settlemeyer, did you have a comment? Anyone else in the room? Then I'll go to Ms. Lane online.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add to Commissioner Hill's comments that the Emerald Bay piece is such a joy to take on, because it's been such a long overlooked problem for so many years. And TRPA really drew the roadmap when back in 2018, they studied the corridor. They have a lot of very good data. And if anything, we just see we could make those numbers bigger probably. Not a whole lot has changed. But from my perspective, without Devin Middlebrook's support, I would not have been able to even come close to where we are today, which we're still really on the ground floor, but momentum is building. And then also the additional support of Kim Carringer, and of course, I shouldn't say of course, and our executive director, Julie Regan, who've all been foundational to helping me begin to move somewhere in this process. So I just also wanted to thank you, Devin, for all your support and for your leadership on this.
Thank you, and ditto.
Thank you. Any other board member comments or questions? Not seeing any. This is a general information item only, so we're going to hear public comment on this item at the end of the meeting. And in the general public interest comment period. So with that, I'll say thank you again, Devin, for all of your incredible work and effort, and Kim, Julie, everybody associated with the programs. I think we've made huge progress in the last couple of years, and I appreciate all the effort that goes into it. So thank you.
Thank you all.
We'll move on to agenda item 10, which is our reports, and I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Reagan for the Executive Director report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director, and I wanted to begin with this incredible couple of photographs. We've been especially enjoying our dark skies here in Tahoe over the last few weeks with visible aurora borealis and a comet putting on a great show for us. And Sarah Underhill was able to capture those images. So it's just absolutely incredible that we've been experiencing some of the most beautiful weather in fall that I can remember, and some beautiful dark skies. And we discussed this at one of our staff meetings, and Helen Fillmore, one of our newer employees at TRPA, basically mentioned, it puts in perspective what the hard work that our staff do every day, working with projects about lighting and making sure that we're keeping the region appropriate in terms of the ability to see and enjoy our dark skies, which in so many places in the country you can't anymore because of just the way urbanization has taken place. So we're fortunate here. Bless you. I will take the next slide. I have just about 10 slides to run through, and fortunately we are tracking very well on our time. Maybe I'll start just with a reaffirmation of what I heard the board say to Devin Middlebrook, and Devin has just been doing an incredible job in his new role as Government Affairs Manager and has really hit the ground running. And the Restoration Act success of extension is certainly the big headline from this year. We learned a new term and a new program that we need to fund. It's around wind management. When we had this press conference that Congressman Kiley organized up at the top of Heavenly, the top of the tram, which is always a windy place. It was particularly windy, and our board chair, myself, had the great pleasure of speaking with Congressman Kiley, Senator Cortez Masto, Jesse Patterson from the League to Save Lake Tahoe, and they were great. I think more than a third of our board, 6 members, participated in that incredible event. But the wind was fierce, and actually the flag came undone after being zip tied and almost impaled folks. So it was wild. I could barely get through it. Hair everywhere, but it was an incredible celebration to mark this passage, and certainly signaled visually and for the country what's possible when you work across the aisle, across state lines, across different houses of Congress to get something done for the lake. And that was certainly on display. So special thanks to the board members who were able to attend and to support us through the year, and also to Heavenly and Vail Resorts for hosting the space and for getting us up kind of the top of the world view to take a moment and as Member Kekeffer likes to say, have a mission moment and look out at the lake and appreciate what it is that we're all doing together, rowing in that same direction. In the next slide, just wanted to share some exciting news of a meeting that was held up here in Tahoe at the Tahoe Blue Event Center just a couple weeks ago. And it was the California Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force formed by Governor Gavin Newsom on the California side. But what was exciting about this is that it truly was a bi-state meeting. And as you can see, I'm there with Secretary Wade Crowfoot and Director Settlemeyer, and the whole conversation around the fire issues in Tahoe served as a model for the state and the country of what we can achieve when we work together on what is a critical issue facing our community. I know you've all received a lot of public comment, and we're going to hear some public comment later in our agenda. And I'm going to speak to some of that with the report, but it just underscores that this is an issue facing the entirety of our 2 states. And the meeting actually brought more than 500 people. I think it was one of their most well-attended meetings hosted by the California Tahoe Conservancy and the Tahoe Fund, and of course, State Natural Resources Agency. I was able to participate in a panel with Casey, who's in charge of Nevada Division of Forestry, and Jason Vasquez, who's the executive director of the California Tahoe Conservancy. And we just talked about Tahoe and the work that we've been undertaking really well even before the Angora wildfire of 2007 and the evolution of that and the difference that that was able to make in the Caldor fire, which just think about it, just a couple years ago, 3 years ago, it was just being extinguished around this time in October when it was fully contained. So we were able to talk about the progress that we've made, the preparation that we've had in our basin that made us ready for that horrific experience. But certainly the work is enormous and there's so much more to do. Patrick Wright, who used to be the Conservancy's director, is now the director of the task force. And he noted in his remarks, no other region has made an interagency commitment like this. And it's particularly gratifying to see that work in defensible space, home hardening, and fuel removal during and after the Caldor fire. So it was really interesting also to learn from what other areas are doing and do some information sharing, lessons learned. You know, certainly we have a lot of challenges and we've had many challenges along the way. So that was incredible. On the other side of the state line in Nevada, University of Reno, for some of you who are in the region, you might have heard that the University of Nevada at Reno is celebrating 150 years and is having a big sesquicentennial celebration. I was really fortunate to be invited to go celebrate Frankie Sue Del Papa, who was our first Nevada female Secretary of State, female Attorney General, and just was recognized with other great women of the state of Nevada who were recognized over this 150-year course of service. And of course, it was very interesting. If you are interested in all of that, former Governor, President Brian Sandoval of UNR did a State of the University address where he talks about the history, and it's so fascinating. You know, the University of Nevada started with 7 students, started in Elko, moved to Reno, and he told the story of how the university was looking to go to Carson City, and then by one vote in the legislature, it ended up going to Nevada in Reno. So it was a fascinating tale, but from 7 students to now 5,000 students a year. And hopefully within 2 years, I will be one of those graduates of my PhD. I'm going to get there eventually. It was inspiring to see so many women honored. Senator Cortez Masto is the co-chair of that celebration for honoring great women of the university. And it was wonderful to be there and to see many community members, et cetera. So that was exciting. And of course, University of Nevada, Reno is a member of our Science Council and is a key research and academic institutional partner in the basin. Over to housing news, a couple of bright spots that we've had, just kind of working from top right down around. That's a shot of Kings Beach. You can't really see it, but Ryan Murray is up at a table. We've had a couple of housing workshops since the last meeting and many more planned. So far, we've had well over 100 community members that have come out to talk about housing. This is part of our Cultivating Communities, Conserving the Basin, our next phase of work in the strategic priority around housing that the board supported in your direction for our work plan. And it was incredible. I was at the Kings Beach meeting there that's pictured, and we had a lot of Spanish speakers, and it was just incredible to see our staff interacting in a bilingual capacity. We had an interpreter there and capturing the concerns of the community. So a lot more work to come and a lot more work is underway. But then moving around the dial, the big celebration and bright spot, again, many of you attended as well. Mayor Bass and Brooke Lane, myself, and other speakers, including Lynn Barnett, who worked at the agency for many, many years, now St. Joseph Community Land Trust. We cut the ribbon on Sugar Pine Village. And what was a takeaway from the conversations and the presentations that were made at that event is that basically, if we can do this here, we can do it anywhere. And housing, affordable housing is complicated. The financial structure is complicated with environmental considerations. It was just 2 years ago exactly that we had the groundbreaking. And so to go from groundbreaking 2 years ago to 60 people moving in the first phase of a 248 unit affordable housing complex was absolutely heartening in the middle of coming out of COVID and all the other hurdles with interest rates, we are being held up as a state and national model of what you can do by working together with all the many partners that had a role to play, of which are very extensive. I think my favorite part of the whole day was the woman who's in the orange sweatshirt. Her name is Wendy. She's a new resident of Sugar Pine Village, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. She teared up herself to talk about what this means for her as being from Tahoe, working in this community, working multiple jobs, the housing options that she's had to endure are often substandard. She was over the moon that she will have a quality place to live. And so it made it that much more rewarding to say what we're doing matters to our community. And I was able to make that point of, with the, bless you, with the environmental considerations that we have, housing really is life. And at Tahoe, our life is the lake, and they are interconnected. And so the environmental benefits that we'll see from people working here and not driving in, and safety benefits for commuters, it's just immeasurable. So really appreciated everyone's hard work from our staff. Brandy McMahon was there, and Brandy was sitting at the front row, and these are never easy projects. They are complicated. And she said, this was a lot of work, but it was so worth it. So this is what we're doing, and we're committed to it. And we'll have more of these events to celebrate, I'm sure, in the future. All right, the next slide. Just a couple more to get through. We've mentioned the field tour, but I just wanted to really emphasize how incredible it was to start at the city council chambers, where we have Mayor Bass, who's represented with in the tour. We had Supervisor Lane, who organized all of this, but we also had staff from other staff members from the city, from El Dorado County. We had Caltrans representatives, we had law enforcement, we had the League to Save Lake Tahoe, the Forest Service, California State Parks, and we all were talking about momentum. And Member Lane is right. I mean, we all drive around Emerald Bay in the summer, biting our fingernails just like we do around San Harbor and the Highway 28 corridor. And it is only a matter of time that there will be some very serious injuries. So we have a strategy, we have a corridor plan. It is complicated, it's difficult, but we're making progress. And so a really big thank you to Member Lane, to the city, to all the folks that are working with this, with us, to move the ball, to make some advancements that will protect the resource at Emerald Bay, but also have incredible safety benefits as well. And, one of the, I think, key pieces that we're proud about is the trail feasibility that we did around Emerald Bay. It raised a lot of questions in the community, like, are we ready to put a new trail around Emerald Bay? Not to mention that it could cost, $150, $200 million, but we took a hard look at that, and a big thank you to Kim Carringer, who helped collaborate with our partners to say, why don't we work on the areas around Emerald Bay first and develop those and get more shuttles and make more advancements in safety and getting cars, off the roadway shoulders before we move forward with an environmental analysis to connect the trail. We can connect the trail instead from Meeks to Bliss and work on that segment, which will support overall progress in the corridor. So that's just an example of our added value, because when you have so many different entities, you can go about 5 different directions. And then we often work with those partners in a backbone capacity sort of way to identify a path that everyone can support and to grow alignment that will actually move the ball in the right direction. So speaking of move it, let's go to the next one. We are doing Move It Mondays until the snow flies at Tahoe. And this is just a great picture of us taking a walk and talk, where we left the office here. We went down to Nevada Beach through Kale Community Center. We stopped to talk about the Burke Creek restoration. If y'all know where the sushi pier is, now there's the Nugget Casino that's replacing the Thai restaurants there. That's been an environmental restoration project in the works for well over 10 years that we're finally seeing. The creek restoration, the parking lot that was absolutely a war zone is getting fixed, and we're seeing some improvements in connectivity. We walked all the way down the Lam Wata Trail and talked about the Barton project that's in conversation in the public space, all the improvements in Kale Complete Streets, which a big thank you to Member Rice, who's been a champion of getting that horrible condition of Kale Drive improved, along with all these other watershed improvements and watershed restoration work that the Forest Service is doing and the Nevada Tahoe Conservation District. So I had the great honor to meet with Jim Beachy yesterday. Some of us recall Jim was the executive director, I think one of the most consequential executive directors in TRPA's history in the 90s. And really it was under his leadership that the EIP, the Environmental Improvement Program, that was born. I asked him for some advice and he said, you know, the one thing I will say is take care of yourself, because this job is very difficult and hard on the health. And I've had a few issues with that lately where the stress has been boiling up. So we started Move It Mondays. And so it's been amazing. Like, let's walk and talk, catch up with our colleagues and get some exercise and look around and see this beautiful environment. So over the lunch hour, we've been doing that, and we'll do that until the snow flies. And then maybe we'll do a couple runs at lunch on Mondays if we're able to do it. But it's just a great opportunity for us to bond with our team members, learn about these restoration projects, and just get to enjoy the place that we work so hard to protect. And speaking of our staff, we have a new staff member, Julia. Is Julia around? I don't know if she's probably at her desk. We want to welcome our newest member of the finance team, Mariana, who was an expert in grants, left us for a different position, and Julia was able to jump in, and she will be working with the transportation and housing grants, among other programs. She previously worked in Kern County as a fiscal and policy analyst and has a degree in criminal justice and a master's in public administration. So she just came up from Kern County, the Bakersfield area. She has incredible experience. But a funny anecdote, we were online, we were doing a Teams interview. She was in her car on her phone and we were talking, and it was so hot through the windshield that her phone just shut down. Like, it was just too hot. It was starting to melt. So she was like, can I just get over with this so I can move to Tahoe and get cool? Because there's Julia. Come on up and just say hello. I'm just telling the story of our interview. You can hit the button there. Great.
Hi, everybody, members of the board. Thank you, Julie. I kind of interrupted your presentation just now.
No, it's a wrap. No, just introduce yourself.
All right. I was watching virtually and I didn't know you guys were going to introduce me. So thank you. I think she mentioned I came from Kern County. I've been working in government finance for the last 5 years, working in government for about 9 years. So excited to be here in Tahoe, working with TRPA and now with all of you. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Good to have you on board. Thanks for hopping in. Great. All right, next slide. Just a couple more, and then we're going to have Victoria Ortiz talk about our environmental scholarship program. So I wanted to mention, as I know Mr. Flaherty is here, and we've been getting a lot of public comments around regional evacuation planning. I just wanted to piggyback on what was said earlier related to the fire task force that met here. Regional evacuation planning and living through the age of mega fires in our basin is a top priority for our community. It's a top area of concern. And just wanted to assure the board that, you know, we are taking all these public comments seriously, and we appreciate, you know, the light that's being shined on the work that's been done and additional work that needs to be done. And just give a couple of thoughts to add into the conversation. We're actively working to implement the grant that Secretary Buttigieg announced when he was here for the summit, that $1.7 million Protect grant, which is about adapting in the face of climate to emergencies. And not just wildfire, but all manner of emergencies. Don't forget, we have rock slides, we have blizzards, we have extreme weather, we have flooding. And so just bolstering our overall regional capacity to adapt to that is a top priority. And just wanted to reassure the board, we are working with it. We're working with the professionals who have statutory authority to manage evacuations, and that would be law enforcement, in cooperation with the fire service and unified command, and then to look at our role in land use, at how we do an analysis around the regional transportation plan, which later after the board meeting, we'll be having our transportation committee, and the focus of that committee has been working through all the policy pieces for the regional transportation plan update. And so we will be looking at that in the regional transportation plan. And just a couple of points to keep in mind that really tie back to the greater emphasis are on the corridors and managing people flow in the basin. Just wanted to take the opportunity to remind the board of some of the previous discussions that we've had about the changing nature of visitor patterns and what people do when they come to Tahoe, and put that in context of where we are today in the intersection with some of these planning policy issues. You know, back in 2000, when Governor Schwarzenegger in the late 90s negotiated treaties with Native American tribes in California, casinos started being built throughout the state. We immediately started seeing reduction in jobs and schools closing. We lost about 1 in 4 jobs between 2000 and 2010. And those jobs are not coming back. And so at the same time, we tried to pivot to an economy regionally around outdoor recreation, but we did not have the adequate investment in infrastructure. And so we are playing catch up on that. And that's a really important point. When you look at all the statistics, even though those of us that live here and experience Tahoe on a daily basis, it feels like there's more people. We have not yet hit the same numbers pre-COVID, nor have we hit the same traffic numbers pre-COVID, but people have flocked to public lands. So visitorship in public lands and outdoor areas is up. People used to come and park at the casinos in very large parking areas. Now they're going on our corridors and they're doing different things. And that has created intense new pressure around congestion that we're working through as we adapt. And our goal is to make our land use decisions marry up with adaptation for climate and emergency preparedness. So a key tenet of this Restore grant is to get our land use patterns that support better evacuations. A key tenet of the environmental improvement program and forest health is to bring federal and state money to bear, other dollars to do thinning around evacuation corridors, which is already underway. The utility corridor work that many of those tours were looking at, it's making great strides. And those are all around the main highways of 28, 89, and 50. We're probably one of the few places in the nation that are doing utility corridor thinning to reduce the risk from fire, from infrastructure, from power infrastructure, but at the same time, we're also building more resilient corridors for evacuation. So those are just a couple examples. Happy to talk more. We're bringing some other briefings forward, but just in terms of the look back of the 2012 plan, a couple stats I wanted to share. You know, if you look from 2000 to 2020, our full-time population has dropped 12%. And we are about 2% below the forecast of where we'd be in terms of residential units, in terms of development. We're 7% below where we are in hotel, tourist accommodation units, and 4% below where we expected to be in the 20-year analysis of our regional plan. And so even though that still is intersecting with this great outdoors increase that we're seeing. So just interesting as we move into more discussions, want to keep those in mind. The last slide, I think I have maybe 1 or 2 things. We talked a lot about the individual parcel evaluation system, or so-called IPE system. This is just a graphic of a map that's about the hydrologic locations and transfers across different units. Essentially, the IPE system that we talked a great deal about, and legal committee did have a closed session to discuss as well, is something that we've been implementing for roughly 30 years. And there's been some questions about, you know, it's 30 years ago, we need to, you know, look back and make sure that we're implementing this with new information and best available science in mind. And so one thing that I wanted to let the board know that our staff is looking to do is to evaluate the IPES line in Placer County. All jurisdictions that receive building allocations, except for Placer County, that line has dropped as low as it can drop. And that is a good thing because that means more land is being conserved and development is going in places that's more suitable for development. We call that high capability land. But in Placer, it's a very unique situation. As Cindy knows, there are a lot of what are called sliver lots, these small shotgun lots, paper subdivision maps. And it's a simple math equation. It has not been able, the line has not been able to drop. And so for many, many years. And so this is something that we're able to just caucus with Placer County staff, take a look to just evaluate the possibility, and not sure where it's going to go, but I wanted to let the board know based on the conversation last month, we are certainly open to looking at that element of the IPE system in Placer County. So just wanted to let you know, we're going to try to fold that into our existing work plan and just to evaluate that line formula. And what's coming next? So there's a lot of bright spots. There's a lot of great news, but the challenges don't stop coming, and they're getting harder and more difficult to address going forward. And so here are some of the topics that we'll be bringing forward to you in the coming months. In the next 3 to 4 months, we've got some City of South Lake Tahoe area plan amendments that the Regional Planning Committee has looked at, and we'll be bringing those forward. We're going to bring a briefing on community wildfire protection plans. There's a full update of that program, and I think that intersects very nicely with the discussions around evacuation and what our communities are doing and setting up fire-wise communities and analyzing risk and how that feeds into the work of our partners who are actually doing the forest thinning and the good work that's underway. And just a fun fact, TRPA actually funded through a grant from the Bureau of Reclamation before the Angora wildfire, the first community wildfire protection plans in the basin. And so we're still very connected to our partners at the Conservation District who are doing this work. We're going to be bringing an aquatic invasive species program update, as well as an update on a community meeting that the county sponsored, El Dorado County and Member Lane and Hearst and the staff at the county about a permanent location in Myers. We just had a town hall meeting last week, and we'll bring you more updates in the context of the overall program and the progress that we're making up on Top Spooner to build a permanent station up there. We have the threshold evaluation, which is, the every 4 or 5 years that we bring a big assessment of the 150 environmental standards in the 10 different categories. And we'll be bringing that to you in the coming months. We've got the Tahoe Living Working Group, which is the big task force that works on that housing work of cultivating communities, conserving the basin. We'll be bringing you some updates on that and amendments that might be coming forward, and working with our advisory planning commission as well. And the 4 members of this board that serve on that group will be engaged. And we've had a lot of conversation around Homewood. We had a very long regional planning committee meeting after last month's board meeting with a lot of public comment. And you probably all saw the news that Homewood is not opening their ski mountain this winter. And we heard from the members of the committee that public access in the future to the mountain is a key concern. And so we've certainly conveyed that to the Homewood team, and the Homewood team is looking to bring us some new language that we think would address the board's concerns. So there's a lot of work underway at the staff level there, and working with all the community members and stakeholders to keep them apprised through the Homewood website, which webpage on our site. And then Barton is also a big topic in the news. I don't know if you all have noticed the site where the Lakeside Inn and Casino used to be. They actually did a really good job to scrape that site and their BMPs. We've been out, making sure they're all up to par, and they are. And it's hard to believe, the condition that was there before this. They certainly have a lot of work to do with our team in bringing a project proposal forward, an area plan amendment to create a health district. We've actually asked them to do an environmental assessment, so an EA, because there are some scenic considerations that are really important that they need to develop some alternatives on. And so we've been in conversations with them. They understand that that's the right thing to do. We're working very closely, Member Rice, with the Douglas County staff. And so that work is getting underway to look at some options for that site. It's not that big of a site if you really think about it, for the beautiful gateway opportunity that it is, and then to really raise the bar in healthcare in our community. The hospital currently is old. Elvis went to South Lake Tahoe to the existing hospital. It's designed in the shape of a snowflake. It needs a lot of love, but one thing I wanted to share in a meeting I had this week with the applicant, a lot of questions have been raised about, the community and service to the community. And one of the things that I worked on many years ago is helping fund the expansion of a community clinic. And I did hear from the team that community community clinic is actually staying right where it is, which is right across from the main hospital. And they're expanding that as a rural health clinic, and they have plans to bring a rural health clinic as well over as part of this project. So that was interesting. I wasn't sure where things were landing, but that was information that I wanted to share. And then with that, I think we have Victoria, who will take the next slide and just close out with some information on our scholarship fund.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is Victoria Ortiz. I'm the Community Engagement Manager with the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. And I have the joy and privilege of presenting our Environmental Scholarship Fund winners this year. So next slide, please. Actually, back one slide. There we go. A little bit of background for those who aren't familiar. TRPA is dedicated to fostering the growth of future environmental stewards. And in line with our commitment to enhancing local communities, TRPA also provides scholarships to graduating high school students in the Tahoe region who are pursuing environmental studies. So since its inception in 2004 by Julie Reagan, the TRPA Environmental Scholarship Fund has granted more than $15,000 to 33 deserving students. Next slide. And here they are. So this year, Makara Steves and Sonnet Van Doren were recognized as exemplary scholars, and they each received $1,500 scholarships in acknowledgement of their academic excellence, extracurricular involvement, and dedication to environmental causes. So as you would expect, these are true underachievers. Makara Steve of overachievers, obviously. Makara Steve of South Tahoe High School has already found ways both in and out of the classroom to contribute to a climate resilient and sustainable future for Tahoe. She collaborated with the USDA Forest Service to gather and assess water quality samples for kokanee salmon and help design tiny homes using only sustainable building materials. She was an active climate crew member, regularly participating in campus cleanups and taking advanced biology and environmental science courses. And fun fact, she was the longest standing employee at Cup of Tahoe. She also balances stellar academics and ample extracurricular activities and is now at Montana State University pursuing a degree in environmental science. And Sonnet Van Doren on the right there of Wattell High School just left this fall to study environmental engineering at Stanford. So again, these underachievers. She has served as a volunteer docent at UC Davis Tahoe Environmental Research Center since 8th grade, which also motivated her to conduct plant research and create an app about invasive species prevention. So we hope to hire her here in 4 years when she comes back to Tahoe. She's excelled academically and worked part-time as a ski instructor at Kirkwood and completed an internship with the U.S. Forest Service's Generation Green program. And some of you might be familiar with the Lake Tahoe Ambassador Program. She actually served as a lead program manager this summer in Lake Tahoe, educating visitors about how to take care of Tahoe. So I just love to share, next slide, please, that the funding for this program comes from generous TRPA governing board and advisory planning commission members, as well as staff contributions. So in the last few years, we've received many donations. So thank you to everyone who has donated in the past. We really appreciate it. And if you all are inspired to contribute this year, there are several ways to do it. I'm looking at you this year. So we made a check out to TRPA with, you can make a check out to TRPA with a memo for the environmental scholarship before the November board meeting. Or to make it easier this year, we can also take staff donations just through a credit card in the front. We were working on Venmo and Apple Pay, and we're not quite there yet. But if anyone wants to come find me or go to the front during the lunch break, you're welcome to make a donation in that way. So thank you very much for your time and listening, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Victoria. Are there any questions? Thank you so much. Thank you. And Julie, are you done?
I am. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, well then I think we're going to turn it over to our general counsel report. I believe, will this be your last official
This will be my last official report. so we
general
could
counsel report?
make the
So,
actual
we
legal-
need a drum roll, or, have you
God forbid.
resolved all the issues? And
Yes,
yes,
everything's
okay,
done.
okay.
I think you're in good hands. Graham and Marcia and Jack and Catherine are excellent members of staff that will see to the legal needs of the agency. I'd just like to take this time just to appreciate all the people that I've been able to connect with as a result of this job. Iterations of this board over 25 years, iterations of staff. The issues are meaty, they're important, they're intellectually stimulating, and the people that you get to work with are engaged and passionate. And it's been a real pleasure and an honor to work for the agency for the time that I have. So thank you very, very much for that. I want to shout out just quickly to Catherine, who has been a partner over the last multiple years. And thank you for your time and effort. And that's it. So thank you very much.
We don't like to see those tears, you know, because we could all get choked up. But I do think, John, we will be doing a resolution. I think we may have to hold till December so we get the jacket in person with the resolution. We could do it in November, but that would, you know, okay, we'll do December. But when you think of what you've led us through, and just in my short time serving on this board and thinking of the wise advice and no doubt the, sorry, it's true, weekends, evenings, many phone calls to seek advice and your wise counsel and your guidance for the governing board as we transitioned through a couple different issues while I've been on the board. So I really appreciate your honesty and the guidance and the wise counsel that we always talk about, general counsel. Are there other board members who would like? Yes, Ms. Aldine.
You know, I've worked with John a long time and I thoroughly respect his ability. And as you say, his wise counsel. I mean, we butted heads at times over issues, you know, the kind of which is a good thing. I think you need to invoke that sort of exchange, you know, because it generates new ideas, it allows for new perspectives. And hopefully I didn't contribute to your hair loss. I apologize if that's the case. But I wrote a little something. It's kind of, you'll have to excuse me because there's a little hyperbole involved here, but I just thought that it would be appropriate to kind of acknowledge John's really doesn't acknowledge all of your contributions. It's more in keeping with your planned retirement and the hope that you remain safe and uninjured. So this is a farewell poem for John. Adept at writing briefs and squaring off in court, John has chosen lazy days instead of suits and torts. Adventuresome by nature, he may one day conclude that sitting at a desk at work is a safer interlude to riding on uneven ground to seek a biker's rush and ending up in traction with another shoulder crushed. So as we bid our friend adieu and wish him all the best, I'd like to help him ward off hurts from any future quests. Contained within this package is a nifty little aid to cushion him from injuries when he misbehaves. So. Oh
no, come on. We all have to see what
yeah.
the words alluded to.
That's not for your ego, that's for your shoulders.
Oh my gosh. Shelley, that was so well done. Other board member comments? Yes, Ms. Hill.
You'll be missed. Oh, I'm sorry, John. We have to do this to you. You will be missed. When I was new on the board, you were really open to my phone calls and questions and wanted me to learn. And so I'm really excited for you to retire because that's really exciting. But I know that you're going to take on all sorts of new adventures. And hopefully you'll stay involved in Tahoe. And I know where you live. So yeah, yeah, exactly. I think you're in my district, so I'll be visiting you. So congratulations and thank you for your service.
Other? Yes. Williams.
Well, I'm gonna do this twice because resolution day, I'm gonna have to say something as well, but I have the privilege of working with a lot of lawyers in my job in this role, and I can say you are just one of the best lawyers I have ever met and had the pleasure to work with. You are thoughtful and respect the law and even keeled and a mentor to so many of us. And I know you've instilled that in your team. And it's just been such an honor, really, to have you a part of this agency for as long as you have. And we hope to all carry that through, lawyers and non-lawyers alike. So thank you for your service.
Amazing. Any others? Those online, I see Belinda and Brooke. Let's go Belinda first.
Great, thank you so much. And John, I can't tell you how much I'm going to miss our engagements on the long drive, from Reno to meetings where you educate me on what's coming up. And just sorry to not be there today, but for sure I'll be there in December when we give you the proper send off, because you're amazing. I think, to just echo what others have said, those of us who have worked with attorneys over the years, I am just amazed at what what you have in your head. And I've said this often to other people that, there are certain people that I would love to have a little snippet of their brain power, and you're one of those. So again, thank you for all you've done. Really, really appreciate it, and making me feel welcome as someone who is not a, Tahoe person, to the Tahoe world. You've been fantastic. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Belinda. And then Brooke.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Boy, Mr. Marshall, this is a hard one. The two different times that I've served on TRPA over different terms, you are just solid as a rock for us as a board. Give us confidence. Your individual counsel, as other people have said, it helps us really understand matters that are so complex. So I appreciate all of that. And the only thing I would like to share with my colleagues is that 96% of the time after Mr. Marshall has given us legal advice, my motto is clear as mud. You're going to be missed though, sir. Thank you for all your service. Amazing.
Thank you. Any other board member comments? I know we'll have much more of a preparation and roasting to come. And Ms. Reagan, you had a comment?
May I just thank you, Madam Chair, Julie Reagan here. I just want to thank John. This will be, we'll still be working together and seeing each other over the next couple months, but this will be our last, elbow bump at the dais. And I really appreciate your working with me in my new role. And, we've had a lot of transitions over the last 2 years, and John was always there to make it smooth. And we come at things from different places, and that's been so helpful for me over the 20 years that we've worked together, but especially over those last 2 years. So your knowledge will be missed, but I think I share with John complete confidence and excitement and optimism about the legal team, and really building on your legacy is something that we'll hold close and hew to going forward. So just thank you for making my transition into this executive director job a very smooth one and an important one. And just a quick note, back to the Environmental Scholarship Fund. When we started that all these years ago, John was one of the first riders in what we called the Lake Lapper Challenge. And you did not get injured in that, for the record. And we had 4 legs of basically a race around the lake. And that's what started the scholarship challenge. So thanks for always inspiring us to ride hard and keep doing it safely.
Thank you, Julie. Well, more to come. You will be missed, but you definitely have left us in excellent hands, and that's a true testament to your leadership. So thank you and your service. Okay, then we'll move on to agenda item 11. And this is governing board member reports. Do any governing board members have reports to offer up? I'm not seeing any. I did want to mention and I'm not seeing any hands online from our other board members, that the Homewood closing is going to have a profound impact on West Shore businesses. We are working with our business community and our Chamber of Commerce to talk about employment and some of the issues that will be impacting the small support businesses that benefit from having a recreation amenity on the West Shore. We've also seen a couple of other smaller businesses close on the North Shore. And so we are quite concerned within the county of the compounding impacts we're seeing for a variety of reasons. Caliente has closed its doors permanently in Kings Beach, and the Willard Sports in Tahoe City has also closed its doors permanently. So as we look at those changes and transition, remembering the decisions we make not only have environmental consequences, but obviously economic consequences, how we balance those and find that balance is critical. And then I did want to share, and Julie, I don't think you mentioned this, but I got a ride, test to pilot ride on the electric hydrofoil boat that Navier is demonstrating for the Bay Area. I took advantage of going out on that. What an amazing vehicle. And they are in the development stages for a 30-person boat, hydrofoil boat. Just in the 6-passenger, being able to get from and around the lake through waves without a bump, having a hot cup of coffee on the dashboard and watching that you can go through the wake and not have any impacts. And so you think about if we were able to look at waterborne transit. I think we've always looked at waterborne transit as a pie in the sky dream. And because of the winds, high wave activity, for those of us who do have a chance to boat, it is can be very challenging. And so to see this boat and potential for opportunities for transit that would keep vehicles off our roads and to get people around the lake. The 30-passenger one, I think they're looking at for the Bay Area, from what I understood. But we could certainly benefit from that. So hopefully they'll be back next summer and can offer more insights as to what that might be and how we could use that in dealing with our transportation. And then finally, I also did a tour with our Placer County contracts with CAL FIRE for our Placer County Fire Department. We did a tour with the Board of Supervisors of the Grass Valley Air Attack Base, which is 11 minutes air time from the Lake Tahoe Basin. And I rub that in that I don't get a regular helicopter trip to avoid my commute time, but really amazing to watch. And they showed videos of the pilots and what they do to shape the fire for evacuations. In particular, they showed us an incident that occurred in the foothill communities where residents, the fire was burning directly toward their homes on a private drive that was acres of land in, and how they dropped that retardant, were able to get the people out. They ultimately were also able to save the homes, but their primary goal at that point was getting the people out of those homes on these long driveways with a very rapidly growing fire in the foothill community. So it was excellent. And again, I think as we talk about evacuation and fire in the basin, it's good to see the resources, the Black Hawk helicopters and the other air support that CAL FIRE now is 20% of CAL FIRE's overall budget is the aeronautical support that they're providing. Pretty amazing. So as we saw in the Davis fire in our support there. Committee reports, agenda item 12, anything from local government, legal, operations and governance, EIP, transportation, or the regional planning committee.
Madam Chair, on transportation, are we going to be able to start at noon? Just because I have I have a committee member who's virtual, so I just want to make sure.
May I, Madam Chair? Yes, Julie Reagan here. Yes, we will break for lunch after the conclusion of this, and then we'll start at noon.
Okay, thank you.
Any other reports? Okay, then we'll go to our final public comment period. And this is time for the public to address us on any item that was on today's agenda, including the consent calendar or any other items. Just a reminder, we're prohibited by law from taking immediate action on or discussing issues raised by the public during this public comment period, and they must relate to matters within the jurisdiction of the agency. We'll hear comments on any single topic, not to exceed 30 minutes, and written comments received by 4 p.m. yesterday were forwarded to the board members before the meeting start time. And so now I will go to those in the room, Mr. Flaherty, and then any of you online, please raise your hands and we'll call on you in order as we take public comment. Thank you. Mr. Flaherty.
There we go. Doug Flaherty, Tahoe, cleanair.org. Governing board members, please make this letter as well as the independent Lake Tahoe Basin wildfire evacuation analysis along with today's press release, which is attached, and the frequently asked questions document attached, part of the record minutes in connection with agenda item 11. Hard copies of these documents have been handed to the TRPA administrative staff earlier, as well as a thumb drive containing electronic copies of these documents. This to make it easier to display the documents as part of the record. Please ensure that the minutes and the record reflect the colored copy of the independent evacuation analysis and not a black and white copy. This, since it is important for the public to view the many graphics in color to more fully understand the complete contents of the analysis. I want to emphasize that the purpose of the independent analysis from its inception and as it remains so today is to raise awareness and inform land use planners and the public of potential wildfire evacuation public perils that exist within our unique Lake Tahoe Basin. As just one example of agency's stated potential public peril, it is important to refer to the 2017 Placer County Tahoe Basin Area Plan, EIS, page 31-32, that admits in Placer County's case, emergency evacuation and quote unquote, emergency evacuation conditions would likely result in traffic demand that exceeds roadway capacities under any scenario at any hour, end of quote. That's Placer County. Yet the TRPA and its partner agency land use policies, code amendment and permit processes continue to lack any requirement whatsoever to undertake a roadway by roadway wildfire evacuation analysis, indicating how long it may take to get residents and visitors safely out of harm's way and out of the basin during a fast moving, no notice evacuation. So in closing, I appreciate your executive director's email to me on September 26, 2024, stating, quote, your study, referring to the independent analysis, is raising more awareness of the urgent need for regional evacuation planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flaherty. Is there anyone else in the room? Not seeing any, so we'll go online. Maria or Catherine?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is one hand raised online. Christina Hill, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Christina Hill. I am a former TRPA planner and a longtime planning consultant and a 40-year full-time Tahoe Basin resident. I am here represented. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you,
sorry.
Christina.
It says I'm muted. I am here representing the Tahoe area group of the Sierra Club. We are very concerned about the Connections 2050 plan that is being considered by the Transportation Committee today. I will also comment following the committee meeting. I can appreciate that you're a planning agency and as such need to plan for the future. However, this new plan calls for over 4,000 more residential units, 490 more short-term rentals, and 161 plus square footage of commercial floor area. What happened to caps on development? How will this additional development impact environmental thresholds? The Tahoe Basin does not have the environmental capacity or the capability to withstand this additional proposed development. Consider the analogy of when there is a huge snowstorm with 10 feet of new snow. Truckee, as well as Heavenly Valley, has asked visitors not to come. There was no parking, roads were closed, etc. It was unsafe. This is the approach we need to implement to protect Lake Tahoe from further degradation. We are at capacity. Please go elsewhere. We have enough existing population and development to economically sustain our communities. More accommodations, more people, more traffic, less ability to evacuate during wildfires is not a plan you should consider. Please vote no to endorsing the Connecting 2050 plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. We have another hand that has gone up.
Yes, Madam Chair. Trish with the Tahoe Area ALS MND Research Library. Please unmute to make your comment and state your full name for the record.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Trish. Greetings to the board. And I run the Tahoe Area ALS MND Research Library. For the last 3 years, we have been doing water monitoring around the Lake Tahoe area and up at Serene Lakes because of the number of ALS cases. There's been 2 more since I last spoke to you all, and the numbers seem to be increasing. So just so you all know, Jim's report came in the last 2 weeks, and we have posted it on the library page to share with you all. It's 76 pages, and it's really quite interesting, the findings. Jim will be doing a Zoom call for everyone, hopefully by the end of the year. We were hoping maybe sometime in November, we'll have to see. In addition to the collections that we did, there are 17 grab sample on the library page as well. And then we have 5 more samples that he's still working on. 2 for Serene Lakes, the stream up there outside the Water District office, and then 3 samples that I took at Burke Creek, and then 2 at the Cayley Ditch. Both showed evidence of some algae activity, some cyanobacteria activity. So we're still looking at that. We should have those results soon. And then we're going to try to make a plan for moving forward. Jim has a group of 4 scientists who are very interested in the Tahoe area, and we'll be making plans really soon. Right now, I am running around and doing site inspections for all the water collections. We still have yet to hear from you, Montreal. There's a new person that's doing the HAB analysis, and so they are really behind right now. And we hope to have that information out. I don't know, it's probably not going to be till early next year. I want to touch on a couple more topics. I am concerned about Altera. I'm concerned about the algae activity going on in Washishu Creek there. I feel like the cavalier response of, oh, we're just going to move the creek or we're just going to remediate the creek doesn't work for me, because you have to understand what's going on there first. Secondly, I'm also concerned about what's happening at Homewood. I have a lot of friends on the West Shore working in restaurants and whatnot, and they're all really worried about how they're going to stay afloat all winter. I'm concerned about the groups of people that are attached to JMA Ventures, Mahari and Discovery and Omnan and maybe even Weller. And I feel like the map is not the territory with everybody over there. And I'm hoping that TRPA will be incredibly clear with them about the rules, and they don't just issue a permit because they need the revenue for the area. I feel like Homewood is just a sweet little resort, and you know, the hill is not that complex, and I don't understand why they want to build these really expensive condos in an area where everybody just basically lives in, you know, original cabins. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. Please go to the library page and have a good read. There's many articles, and have a gander at the report. It's 76 pages, and I will circle back when I have more information. Thank you all.
Thank you, Trish. Are there any other hands raised?
Madam Chair, there are no other hands raised to comment.
Thank you. Thanks for all the public comment today. And I think that we are ready for a motion to adjourn our governing board meeting. We do want to start our transportation committee meeting right at noon. And I do hear there's lunch waiting for us. So can I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Hungan. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry, you'll miss lunch, those of you online. Okay, we've adjourned at 11:40. Thank you.